When I was in the relationship, I didn't know what the signs were. I didn't know that him calling me stupid was only the beginning of an abusive relationship.
I cried for hours on end because of the things he said to me.
He'd get, verbally abusive, and then he'd get physically abusive.
I knew that I was in a relationship that wasn't normal, like it wasn't supposed to be this way.
Since I'd never been in a relationship, I didn't really know what to expect.
I just kind of rationalized in my mind that, things will get better.
I gave up school for him. I gave all my money. I gave up my virginity. I gave up everything.
I mean, it was supposed to be love. It was supposed to be everything that's involved with love.
It hurts too because I trusted him, and I did it foolishly, but I did trust him with my safety, I never thought anyone would do that to me.
I think everybody wants to be in a relationship. Everybody wants to feel connected. Everybody wants to relate to somebody. Everybody wants to feel special to someone else. An abusive relationship doesn't start off abusive. It starts off great. It starts off feeling warm and fuzzy and loving and connected and special, and you haven't felt this way ever before about anybody else, and so you never suspect that something bad might be coming. You learn to trust your partner and believe in them, and when they tell you that they love you, it's a wonderful thing. It's great to hear I love you. There's nothing wrong with that. It's wonderful to say I love you. It's terrific to be in love when it's a healthy relationship. And so these things start very, very slowly and very insidiously.
The isolation kind of started when, actually from the very beginning.
I wasn't really allowed to talk to one of my closest friends just because she didn't like him.
He just wants to spend time with me because he loves me so much and all this other stuff. And that I shouldn't talk to guys because I'm the love of his life and he doesn't want to lose me. I was close with my family to begin with, but I wasn't really, really close. And after we were dating for a while, I just completely grew apart from them.
It got to the point where it was, well, I just want you to stay at home. I want you to stay at your house and not do anything.
After a while, I stopped calling people. I stopped answering calls.
I kind of took on the role and I accepted him trying to isolate me and just brought it into my own personality.
He got me kind of doing some things that I wasn't very proud of, and I had been brought up not to do. And so when I started doing that, I felt even more isolated from the other people that knew me and knew that I wasn't like that. So it was like I turned into someone else.
The big three would be jealousy, possessiveness, and controlling behaviors. And jealousy isn't the same thing as love. And so we confuse that a lot, especially as young women. And so if a guy says, I'll kill any guy who looks at you, we think, wow, he's great. He really, really loves me. That's not the case. Jealousy isn't the same thing as love. Jealousy means I'm afraid and I'm not worthy of you.
He was very jealous. I couldn't look at any other guys. I couldn't hang out with any other guys.
No hanging out with other guys, period, was a big rule for him.
I had a friend since 9th grade who was a guy. It's like, oh no, you can't talk to him. He's a guy. He was threatened by anyone and everyone.
Every single time I went anywhere with other people and didn't bring him along, he would scream at me when I got home, give me the silent treatment.
I think I chose not to talk to guys and not to, associate with guys just because I knew it would upset him anyways.
What were you doing talking to him? I saw you looking at that guy. What, you want to go have sex with him? Do you think he's better than me?
I wasn't allowed to socialize at any parties with anybody. If I didn't know them, then I wasn't supposed to. And if I did know them, and God forbid it was a male, it'd be a problem later on.
I couldn't have friends. I couldn't hang out with other people because other people might put ideas into my head or might tell me that what he was doing was wrong.
It was perfectly okay for him to go talk to another girl. It was perfectly okay for him to get girls' numbers.
His double standard was basically like, okay, say I went up to talk to a guy, like the guy that we were both friends with. He wouldn't like stand for it. But he talked to all my girlfriends. He flirted with my girlfriends right in front of me.
If I ever did anything like that, it would not be okay. It would be, he would have flipped out. He would have been so angry with me.
Think seriously if your boyfriend has different rules for himself than he has for you. Or if he makes rules and then you follow the rules and then he sets new rules and you never know which end is up. So if you are at the mall with your boyfriend and you need to look straight ahead, or you need to look down, or you need to be looking only at him, and you're not allowed in your peripheral vision to see other people or to talk to friends, even if they're guy pals, that's an abusive relationship. There shouldn't be different rules and different expectations for the two of you.
It wasn't until like about 3 months into our relationship that I actually started, verbally abusing me.
At first, it wasn't that extreme. Like, at first, it would be like, shut up, or quit being stupid.
He started to become more aggressive and would start saying little comments either about, how I looked or my weight.
But then it would be like, why are you so stupid? Or, why are you such a stupid bitch?
It wasn't just like, you need to stop. It was like screaming in my face. He would be like, you're such a whore, or call me a lot of things like whore, hooker.
He would tell me I was a bitch every day, several times a day.
Do you want to be a hoe, and do you want to be out there like your friends and these other girls?
Any word that is degrading to women, it was yelled at me numerous times.
He would cuss at me and he would degrade me, and then once he hurt me and felt like he had that control, he'd come back and say, oh, well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that, I was just angry. Please forgive me.
I still didn't even see that he was abusing me. I just thought that that's what was supposed to happen. I just thought that that's how our relationship was. I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was normal.
If a boy starts saying that you're stupid, that you're crazy, that you're fat, ugly, lazy, that nobody else would ever want you, that he's the best you're ever going to get, if he starts calling you names that are insulting to you, whatever that might be, and they might be names that you hear all the time in music or on TV shows, but they're still wrong. Because if he calls you those names and they're demeaning and they're hurtful, don't be surprised when he starts treating you that way, because you've passively consented to it.
He really did control how I dressed. If he thought my shirt was too low, like the shirt I'm wearing now would have been ridiculously too revealing.
A t-shirt and a pair of jeans, and he'd be like, that's too tight. It's like, it's a size large. I wear a size extra small. How can it be too tight?
I stopped wearing my makeup. I stopped doing my hair.
If I was trying to wear shorts, I didn't. There was no wearing shorts or skirts.
He would call me all the time and text me and ask me where I was. And if I was late, he would ask me why I was late. It was unacceptable, I guess, if he called and I didn't answer. I talked to him all the time.
Every time I left the house, he called me over and over.
Right when I wake up in the morning, on my way to class, right after I get out of class, before my other class, before I eat lunch, after I eat lunch.
He'd look at my phone history, who I called. I would erase calls that I got because I didn't want him to see. And I knew he'd look at my phone.
At that point, I felt like some way or another it was my fault that he was doing this. Like, some way or another I was causing this. Like, I shouldn't have stayed out. I should have made sure that he knew where I was, when in actuality, nothing I was doing was wrong.
If your boyfriend calls you more than a few times a day, that's not good. If he texts you a lot, wants to know where you are, who you're with, what you're doing, what time you'll be back, who you talk to, why you didn't text him back immediately, or whatever rule he's made for you in this relationship about when you should call or text him back, That's an abusive relationship. I cannot say that strongly enough. If you're a guy and you're watching this and you think, wait a minute, that sounds like my relationship, except I could be in the girl's place, because what's been talked about in this film is everything that's happening to me. You know what? Girls can be very, very abusive. Girls can be abusive to other girls, and girls can be abusive to guys.
We spent a lot of time together originally just as friends, and we actually got to be pretty close that way. And then kind of over the years, probably a year or so after we got to be friends, we started into like more of a romantic relationship. I'd go out with my friends and she would be upset by that and call and be like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm out with my friends, I'll call you later when I'm done. And that became less and less of an acceptable thing, for her. She'd get off the phone and then start calling me back. I'm like, listen, you can't just keep calling while I'm hanging out with them. I'm going to call you in a little bit. And then my phone would just start ringing, or text messages would just pour in, over and over and over again. She'd call 30 times in a row. It would get to the point of, her yelling on the phone at me, calling me all kinds of terrible things. Things like, you're such a selfish jerk. And I mean, there are a lot of harsher words than that. It's a bad relationship where you spend most of the time being told you're not good enough. Basically, whenever there was something wrong, it became my fault. And it's hard to be in a situation like that and not get drawn into it. And so it kept escalating and escalating to the point where we were just ready to, go at it, basically. And finally, I just had to walk away. I said, I can't be in a situation like this. This is not healthy for either of us. This is not good. This is not good.
If your girlfriend is showing you the same type of behaviors, she's jealous, she doesn't let you have female pals, she wants to know who you spoke to all the time, she's crying a lot, she's threatening suicide, she's intimidating you, she's isolating you from your friends, all the things that we've already talked about, you're in an abusive relationship. There's no reason to be ashamed of it. Just as abusive relationships start off very, very small and difficult to see for a girl, it's the same thing with a guy. Don't be afraid to speak up and talk to somebody that you trust about it.
Every time that I try to break up with him, he would mention the fact that he would inflict some type of harm on himself.
He would say, I'm going to kill myself, and actually go down to the kitchen and get a knife. And one time he actually did cut himself.
One time he stood in the middle of the street in two-way traffic and cried and said that he was going to wait for a car to hit him if I left him.
There were so many times where I tried to break up with him, but he would always say, well, I'm just going to kill myself. And I would stay because I felt like I didn't want to be responsible for that.
I couldn't take that. And I was like, he might be abusing me, but, I still care about him. It's like I don't care if I have to suffer because I don't want him to hurt himself.
Nobody should be killing themselves over you. You're great, but you know what? You're not worth somebody killing themselves over or harming themselves in any way. Is it a manipulation? Could be. It could be a manipulation. But you should always take the threat of suicide or self-harm seriously. So you know what you should do? You should not try to solve it for him. You're not an authority figure. You're not somebody who can truly help him. You should tell his parents. You should tell a teacher at school. You should call the police. You should tell the principal. You should tell your parents and let them deal with it. Because if you truly, truly love your boyfriend and you're concerned about his safety, then put it in the hands of somebody who can really help him.
We were playing around, we were joking around, we were in his bedroom just kind of roughhousing, and all of a sudden I was on my back and he had his hands around my neck, and that's when it kind of, I get in my head, I was like, what is he doing?
He did hold me down a couple times, like tickling me, I guess.
He said to me, he goes, when I did that, it made me have this great feeling inside, like I had all this power and all this control.
When we would walk down the halls, he would make sure that he had a tight grip around my waist or a tight grip on my hand.
I definitely thought that if anything happened, he could totally devour me in a second.
I knew at that point that this wasn't normal and this wasn't, that it could escalate.
I felt like I had to because of our relationship, and he wanted to.
There were many nights where he wanted me to be sexual with him, and if I wouldn't, he'd get very upset, very angry.
He would, in the beginning, I guess, would say, well, if you really loved me, you would do this with me, and if you really cared about me, you would do this with me. And I would always be like, well, you know what? I was very, would put my foot down and say, like, no, this is not what I want to do.
We were still having sex, but not really consensual sex. Like, it was like, you're going to have sex with me and you're going to have sex with me now.
He would hold me down, and even though I'd tell him no, he would still go ahead and do it. And even though I was crying the whole time, he would still go ahead and do it.
I guess maybe it was a form of rape because I didn't want to and I didn't feel comfortable with him anymore. But at that point, it was just, I didn't know how to escape it.
The design that an abuser has for you, of course, is power and control. If you're in a relationship in which you don't want to be sexual with somebody at any time, even if you have been previously, and you're threatened, not even in an overt way like you better have sex with me or else, but if he says, that's okay, if you don't want to have sex with me, I can find 10 girls who will. There's all these girls at school who are interested in me anyway, so that's fine. That's a threat. That's intimidation. If he punches you or kicks you in the thigh, or pinches you on the stomach, or hurts you in some place that's not visible, let me remind you, that's still physical abuse. Your body and your mind are the only two things you own from the day you're born until the day you die. He doesn't have a right to either one of them.
Whenever he would become angry, whether it was with me or with just something else in his life, he would take it out on me.
It started off with shoves and pushes and pulling my hair. He'd pull my hair. He'd grab my fingers, He'd push me hard enough to fall and hurt myself.
Never on the face or on the arms or any place that would be seen. It was usually he would hit my legs so that those bruises would be easier explainable, like, oh, well, I just ran into something.
He'd punch me in my thighs and he'd punch me like on my calves.
After that, it was just, that kind of became normal.
I drove to his house and I met him there and he's like, Katie, we need to talk. So we went inside and that's when he started getting violent.
He grabbed me by my arm and pulled me up into the apartment and he said, you stupid whore, where have you been? Who have you been with?
He pushed me on the bed and he put me in a jiu-jitsu hold.
I knew that the situation was only getting worse, so I kept on trying to leave.
He actually kicked the door in and broke the lock on it.
He was pushing my head down and screaming at me, calling me a slut.
He just grabbed the scissors that was laying on my desk and held them to my throat and said, what if I killed you right now?
He grabbed me and started shaking me and threw me over the couch. And when I fell over the couch, I hit my head on the coffee table.
He actually gave me a bone contusion in my arm and a fat lip with the door.
I just felt ridiculous. I felt as if, why did I love this person who was treating me this way?
He hit me, and afterwards, when I'm laying there, he had sex with me.
If I didn't let him out of the door and if I didn't let him do what he wanted, then he was going to kill me.
If your boyfriend has never been physically violent with you, don't think that it can never become physically abusive. Of course it can become physically abusive. If it's already been physically violent, don't think that it can't escalate to the point where you won't be physically very, very harmed, injured, even killed.
Jennifer was an incredible, bright, sweet, intelligent, a little bit strange girl, very individualistic, very powerful in her own right. She was someone who always demanded respect from everyone. When she was 16, she started dating a boy. The way that she talked about him, she thought he was just incredible, good-looking, charming. He started exerting a lot of power and control over her. He started isolating her from her friends and from me. He started checking up on her all the time. He started making threats if she didn't do what he wanted. And it wasn't that he was going to hurt her, it was that he was going to hurt himself. Her self-esteem had really lowered. I mean, I think he was saying things to her about other people not wanting her, watching her, following her, making sure that she wasn't talking to people he didn't like, making sure that she was involved with his crowd, not hers. It's a lot like domestic abuse. You become so under that person's thumb and so convinced that what they're telling you is right. She came home one day with bite marks in the front of her neck. There were scabs. And I asked her where she got those, and she said, sort of laughingly, that Justin had bitten her. And I said, Jennifer, why would he do that to you? I mean, that's a deep bite. And she said, well, he didn't want me to leave. And I said, that's abuse. And she said, no, you don't understand. We were just kidding around. My daughter's relationship with me became very strained. She started lying for her boyfriend. Even though we were so close, she really didn't want to hear from her mom. You know, she felt I was nagging or criticizing, which is normal for a teenager, but the situation was not normal. I took her to school that morning, but then I didn't hear from her in the evening. She did not come home. I started calling hospitals, looking for Jane Does. I called everyone you would think I would call as a parent, because I had this gut feeling, horrible gut feeling. I had the TV on as background noise during that time that I was looking for her, and I heard on a preview to the news that a body had been found. No gender, no information was released, but I knew that it was her. She had been dead and in the woods for 24 hours. They said that she had been shot in the head. I really just didn't know what to say except that it was him, it was him, it was him. There was never any moment that I thought that it wasn't. I have lost a huge piece of myself. I was a mom for 18 and a half years, and people say, you're still a mom, but I'm not. I don't get to come home to my child laying on the couch taking a nap with her kitten in the crook of her arm. You know, I think about all the things people say. I'll never get to see her married. I'll never get to see her go to college or even graduate high school. But what is the most painful is that I won't see her smile. I won't get to tell her I love her twice a day and hear it back. I'll never get to feel the comfort of being in her arms. This vibrant soul, her life, should never have been lost.
An abusive relationship doesn't start off physically abusive. There's been a lot of testing to see if he can get that far by everything that he's done up until now. And you've told him that he hurts your feelings. You've told him that you don't like it when he does these things, and he hasn't listened to you yet. And so by keeping this a secret, understand that it's not going to get any better. Physical abuse only keeps getting worse. It never gets better until that person is stopped. You've tried to put a stop to it, and it hasn't worked. Now it's time to talk to somebody else about it.
There's so many opportunities out there for people who have been abused. There's so many people out there that want to help. There's hotlines, there's counselors.
If you think that maybe your relationship is abusive, I would say go and seek some help from a parent, a guidance counselor.
As hard and as embarrassing as it is, turn to anyone, a friend, a teacher, even your mom or dad, or aunt or uncle if you can, even a cousin your age. Because there's just so much more to life.
I didn't want my parents to have to, come and get me out of a relationship because I wanted to be, independent and free from my parents, but sometimes you need that.
People who are in abusive relationships are never alone. There's always a way to get help.
Don't be afraid to go talk to somebody because it could possibly save your life.
You have the opportunity to have your life back again and make decisions for yourself and decide what you want your future to look like. And it's going to be great.
Since I finally broke up with Dave, it's been like 100% better.
I started feeling that confidence again. I started having friends and being social like I had been before.
Being in a relationship with him is something that I had to grow out of from being observant of all the other relationships around me and knowing that there's something wrong with the one that I'm in.
A whole new feeling came over me, and I knew finally that he wasn't the person that I was supposed to be with, and the way he treated me was not right at all. And so I finally just let him go. Just let him go.
I look back on it like, why did I let that happen, pretty much. And I also look at it as a learning experience. I do feel that I'm having to start over, relearn how to be in a relationship. You don't have to be in an abusive relationship. It's your right to be in a healthy relationship.